Welcome to the morning after Season 23 preview draft recap. Actually, we should change it. It is not the morning after this week, as I had to work on Monday. So this week it becomes the week after. I can remove that. We'll just get to the draft preview here in a second, or draft review. And also, the only thing we have to know is if you haven't sent in your check yet, please do so. Only 3 people left to do that. One of them did say they sent it in already. So if you haven't, please do so. And number 2, the tiebreaker the vote has been finished. 11 people have voted. 6 people have voted to keep it the same. So it'll stay the same. So the tiebreaker will not change this year for the playoffs, and won't change for the foreseeable future then, as it has been voted to stay. The only round that does rely on bench points is the Super Bowl. So let's get on to business and take a look at. First, we'll start with the draft recap and the review with the North Division. Last year, the Garbage Men finished 6-7 outside the just did make the playoffs. Quarterback, you're looking at Luck and Mariota, really solid there. He's got some depth behind his superstar. Running back might be his biggest area of concern. Thomas Rawls, although he did handcuff it with Michael, which should make him a little safer. Rawls comes into the season a little hurt. Rashad Jennings is there. Last year it ended the year good, but so far the Giants' running game has been awful. And Jay Ajayi is the nominal starter in Miami. Probably his biggest area of concern going into the season. Wide receiver, he's got arguably the best fantasy player in the game, in Antonio Brown, becoming the first fantasy receiver drafted number 1 in our league. Amari Cooper as his number 2, very solid. A lot of upside there. Edelman, probably going to get hurt at some point, but a really good option as a number 3. Fourth receiver / flex area is a little bit questionable. Delaney Walker does usually put up good numbers, but maybe they're actually going to throw receivers this year. Zach Ertz, should be pretty good, but with the whole trade of Bradford today, who knows? The sleeper, as weird as it sounds to the list, Steve Smith is a sleeper. He is coming off the major injury. He could be really good as he was last year before the injury, or is at the end of the line with him due to the severe injury that he had at the age he is. So we'll see there. Strengths, so like I said, probably you're looking at, quarterback and this top 3 receivers are really good. Running backs offer his biggest question just due to depth. The Bucks, last year finished 5-8, although they did have a lot of points, just kind of things didn't break well for him. His quarterbacks are Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, a very solid group. One of the best units at quarterback in the league. Running backs, a little bit of a concern maybe. Doug Martin, can he stay healthy and put up similar numbers and actually score touchdowns this year? Matt Forte, he's a little older now, a new team. Will he be able to be the old Matt Forte? Gio Bernard, you know what you get there. Solid player, good number. He can kind of split running back by committee, but he is very good. And Justin Forsett looks like he's the starter in Baltimore. So a pretty solid running back unit in depth, but a little bit lacking in top side talent. Receivers, gotta like Beckham, who has the potential to be the best player in fantasy. Alshon Jeffrey, if he stays healthy, will be very good. And then Travis Kelce and Dwayne Allen offer up his final receivers. Little bit questionable there, a little thin. But a key there for him will be a sleeper Kevin White. Will he put all those physical skills to can he max them out? If so, that's a really solid team, and Kent should have a solid year. But we'll have to see in those couple question marks. Next up is remember the Tices. Last year they finished 6-7 in the Wiffle League, making the jump to the big leagues this year. Aaron Rodgers, Ryan Fitzpatrick, a good solid quarterbacking duo. Running backs that's all. Adrian Peterson, LaShawn McCoy, and James Starks, that is it. Any injuries, and he will be nearly crippled there. Although if it's an injury to Eddie Lacy, that would really help him out. But just being that thin there, and there's not a whole lot out there to sign. But Peterson and McCoy are as good a duo as you'll find in the league. Receivers, similar to some other teams, he is lacking that top-end guy. Keenan Allen does usually get a lot of targets, and maybe he steps up this year and becomes that top guy. But he doesn't score enough touchdowns typically, but he does get a ton of targets. So we'll see if he can become that top guy this year. He's definitely got the talent to do so. Kelvin Benjamin, coming off the injury, should be solid as a number 2. Marvin Jones, very intriguing number 3. Michael Crabtree, Stephon Diggs, Mr. G there, and Vincent Jackson offer a lot of depth at receiver. His sleeper is Tyler Boyd, depending on Tyler Eifert's condition. and A.J. Green's injury, he could be the number one receiver, at least at times, in Cincinnati, or at least a good solid number two, which would be a very worthwhile pick and a possible starter down the road for the Tices, who have a solid team. The Cardinals, who last year finished 11-2, also made a lot of typos on this thing, I see, as I misspelled Taylor. A very solid team. Drew Brees, Tyrod Taylor, as high an upside at quarterback duo as in the league you'll find. Running backs actually have just gotten better now for me, as I've heard lately that due to the Jamal Charles situation, that Spencer Ware is going to start the season, and for a while anyway, become the number one back. So Todd Gurley, Mark Ingram, Spencer Ware, and Alfred Morris offer a pretty good running back trio. If Spencer Ware continues to be the Chiefs' number one running back for a large portion of the season, that is arguably the best running back group in the league. But we'll officially vote on that later. Sammy Watkins, Eric Decker, Dante Moncrief, Jordan Matthews, Alan Hearns, Tyler Eifert when he returns from injury offer a really good receiving crew. Like the Tices, though, does kind of lack that number one. Watkins, the last 8 weeks last year, was fantastic. The last 5 weeks maybe at least. But can he stay healthy? Can Tyrod Taylor stay healthy? That's the question there. And can Dante Moncrief become the number one in Indianapolis, as the experts, quote-unquote, have said. Sleeper I kind of talked about earlier with Spencer Ware. Jump to the next division. Team Price is Right. Last year finished 9-4, losing in the Super Bowl in his first year, but a respectable showing. Carson Palmer, Ryan Tannehill, good quarterbacks. Question is, can Carson Palmer return to the way he was most of the year last year, except for the playoffs when he stunk? All signs point to him returning to the old way. Running backs, I really like David Johnson, C.J. Anderson, very good. Those are the two I kind of debated on grabbing myself. Melvin Gordon, can he actually score touchdowns? Can he actually be productive this year? So far the preseasons look good. Matt Jones, can he stay healthy? Big question mark. Can he actually be productive this year too? We'll see. Backup running backs a little questionable, but the starters are very good. Receivers, Mike Evans, John Brown, Josh Gordon, Devin Funchess, and Will Fuller. Will Fuller is a borderline sleeper there. He could be really big this year. Questions, though, at receiver. John Brown, is he healthy? Josh Gordon, can he stay out of trouble? If everybody puts it together, that's a fantastic receiving unit. And a sleeper of DeAndre Washington, Latavius Murray has been put on notice. And that's a guy who could steal some carries and probably even take over the load. Very good team. Strengths, top of the line talent there. A little bit thin on some depth at receiver, especially if Josh Gordon does not come back. But a very solid team. The Dingoes last year finished 5-8. Quarterback, the one and only Big Ben on the team. One of the better quarterbacks in the league, so he should be set there. Especially without Le'Veon Bell early, going to probably be forced to throw. Ezekiel Elliott, tons of upside. Jamal Charles, major question marks. As I mentioned earlier, Spencer Ware, will he be healthy? Will he reclaim his role? Jonathan Stewart's a solid number 3. Bilal Powell is a good number 4. Brandon Cooks, Greg Olsen, Larry Fitzgerald, Antonio Gates, a solid group of receivers, but again lacking that top end guy. And it's a high floor, low ceiling group. Not going to really probably surprise anyone with those numbers, but they'll all be solid players. And the sleeper there is Martellus Bennett. The Patriots have shown that they can use 2 tight ends in the past, so that's a good group. Some questions there at receiver and in Jamal Charles, but otherwise a solid team for the Dingoes. Horn Dogs went with Eli Manning and Dak Prescott. Very good quarterback in Eli. We'll see with Dak Prescott's got some upside though. Running backs are Jeremy Hill, Latavius Murray, Ryan Matthews, LeGarrette Blount, TJ Yeldon. As deep a running back group in the league. Questions abound. Latavius Murray, they always just don't seem to like him that much in Oakland. We'll see. Ryan Matthews, can he stay healthy? If he is, he could be very good. LeGarrette Blount, will he get all the carries, which won't happen because Belichick will decide for whatever reason not to give him the ball one week. And TJ Yeldon has so far looked like the better back in Jacksonville according to reports early in the year. Plus he's going to get all the carries, all the catches. Probably not the goal line carries though. But a really solid, deep running back group maybe with a little question at the number 2 running back, though. Receivers, Julio, excellent number 1. Jordy Nelson, excellent number 2. Tyler Lockett, a decent number 3, just because of quantity of throws to him. And Chris Hogan, the number 4 receiver / sleeper, got some upside there. Big guy, and maybe Tom Brady will be able to get him the ball. They did start out slow last year, the Horned Dogs, but they did finish 7-6, and they did make the playoffs. Bites his Badgers at 6-7. Intriguing team for a couple of reasons here. Tom Brady and Joe Flacco are the quarterbacks. Once Brady gets done with his suspension, that'll be a high-level quarterback. Carlos Hyde, Le'Veon Bell, Frank Gore, Duke Johnson, good running backs, quite good running backs. Le'Veon Bell, especially if he stays out of trouble, can come back and offer a elite talent there. But the Badgers will need to hope to finish those first 4 weeks at no worse than 1-3. 2-2 would be a celebration for the Badgers, as they would, definitely take that. Receivers: DeAndre Hopkins, Jordan Reed, Golden Tate, Willie Snead. Good receivers, a little thin at the end. Golden Tate, we'll see what he does without Kelvin Benjamin. If he does produce, then that's an excellent receiving crew, especially if Jordan Reed stays healthy. Sleepers, he's got 2 of them. His running backs, Terrence West and Kenyon Barner, could be very productive backs this year. Depending on injuries and production of the guys in front of them, they could end up being the stars, and that would be a big boon for the Badgers. Moving to the South Division, in Rodgers we trust. In 2014 went 9-4. Last year he was on a we're not sure where in Rodgers we trust last year went, maybe on a sojourn to the Himalayas like Ricky Williams did that one year. Quarterbacks: Phillip Rivers, Alex Smith. Very good with Phillip Rivers. Alex Smith is what he is, although he did play better last year. A decent backup. Questions at running back: DeMarco Murray, can he hold off the challenge of Derrick Henry? Arian Foster, can he stay healthy? Can he hold off the challenge of Jay Ajayi? D'Angelo Williams will be a stud the first 3 weeks. But he's got some questions there. Receivers, very good. AJ Green, Brandon Marshall, Randall Cobb, Jarvis Landry, Marcus Sweeten. As good a group as you'll find in the league, 1 through 4 in the league. And sleeper is James White. Will he develop to the player that Deion Lewis was the first couple weeks last year? We'll see. He's a good pass catcher, but can he run the ball? Gargoyles have a very similar look to last year's 4-9 team. I'm sure he's not going to be happy if it pans out like that. Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, questionable quarterbacking crew. Matt Ryan always tantalizes, but he never usually produces. Probably no different this year, but he is the backup. Kirk Cousins looked great last year. Can he continue it this year? If he does, that's a very good quarterbacking group, but there'll be questions going in. Running back: Lamar Miller, arguably the top 5 running back in the league this year. Amir Abdullah, we'll see. Detroit hasn't shown the ability to run the ball, but he is the lead dog there. Chris Ivory, Charles Sims, good backups. Des Bryant, T.Y. Hilton, Jeremy Maclin, Michael Floyd, and Kamar Aiken offer good receivers there. Des has the question of how will he do without Romo. T.Y. Hilton, can he actually be productive consistently? Michael Floyd, maybe one of the better receivers in that group, maybe even a second best receiver on the team. If that turns out, that's a very solid receiving crew. Sleeper is Mike Wallace, even though he's old. A lot of potential to really step up this year, especially with Joe Flacco loving to throw the deep ball. Finally, in the South Division, Team LBM last year had a supremely disappointing 3-10 finish. His team is 3 stars and then decent players around them. Cam Newton, best player in fantasy, maybe. Derek Carr's a very good backup. Eddie Lacy's got the potential to be a top 5 back. Derrick Henry has looked good in the preseason, but will he be the back this year, or will he just get a few carries? That's going to be the question there. Danny Woodhead and Jerick McKinnon offer some decent depth. Gronk, superstar there. How will he do without Brady? We'll see. Could be even better. You never know, because the quarterback, Garoppolo, might force it to him. Doug Baldwin, last year's Super Bowl and playoff MVP. Emmanuel Sanders, decent number 3. Tavon Austin, Ted Ginn, a little thin at the end of the receiving core. But the sleeper of Jimmy Graham could be a huge win for Team LBM if he's able to come back this year. The Bruisers, last year's Super Bowl champion, finished 7-6. Matthew Stafford, Andy Dalton, probably will be quarterback by committee a bit, depending on matchups. Devontae Freeman, Jeremy Langford, Isaiah Crowell, and Darren Sproles are pretty good running backs. Hopefully for him, Devontae Freeman is able to produce like he did early in the year last year. Receivers of Allen Robinson, Demaryius Thomas, Deshaun Jackson, Devontae Parker, and Colby Fleener, pretty good. A little bit thin at the end, although Deshaun Jackson has supposedly looked fantastic in preseason, looking for that big contract this year. And Colby Fleener offers a lot of upside. Can he produce similar numbers to Jimmy Graham? If so, that's a very good receiving crew. Looking at the best units, I'm going to give Team LBM the winning quarterbacking crew with Cam and Carr. Running backs were close. I thought my running backs were close to Team Price's Right, if that's assuming, Spencer Ware plays some of the year. If he plays all the year, I'm going to have to give myself the nod over Price's Right, but don't know that at this point. So David Johnson, Melvin Gordon, and CJ Anderson are the top group of running backs right now. And a receiver, in Rodgers we trust, with AJ Green, Brandon Marshall, Jarvis Landry, and Randall Cobb is the top unit. Now I will pick the division winners and Super Bowl team. If I pick you to win the Super Bowl, I'm sorry. If I'm playing in the Super Bowl, because I always pick myself. If you haven't watched the show before, since this is the first year, if you've seen it, I always pick myself. I do like my team this year, so I will pick myself again. But if I do pick you for the Super Bowl, I'm sorry. All the other teams I think I've picked have been like one of the worst teams. Griff last year I picked, I think he went 4-9. Team before that went like 2-11. So yeah, it's a death knell. So hopefully, I'm sorry who I did pick. Sorry about your team. Sorry about your fantasy team. North Division, I do think it's going to be really close. I think there's some good teams. I do think I will come out on top there. Holding off a late challenge maybe from the Bucks. Central Division was probably my hardest division to pick. I really liked all the teams, but I will go with the Horned Dogs there to come out and win their division. Also, sorry about the length of this. This is going a little longer than I thought. Finally, in the South Division, again, another tough one to pick. But I do think the Gargoyles will hold off the challenge and win the division as they topple the Bruisers hold off the Bruisers in the last week. And the Super Bowl this year, in a prediction by me, will be a close one, but I'm going to have to go with the Badgers versus the Cardinals in Super Bowl 23. So I'm sorry if about your fantasy team bites that I just jinxed you. So good luck to everyone. Again, if you haven't sent in your check, please do so. Good luck next week. You going to say hi to everybody? Say hi.
Hi.
Say sorry about your fantasy team.
Sorry.
Sorry about your fantasy team, she was going to say, but she kept it quiet. So thanks, everybody, and best of luck this year.